Hi, welcome to Let's Talk Careers. I'm your host, Lisa Bauman. In this episode, I'm talking with Melissa Mcfarlane Heidmiller. She is a talent brand amplifier and a storyteller, a job I've never even heard before. Melissa's unique role is key to talent acquisition for a large organization in the construction industry. She and I share a passion for all things career development. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Melissa. I am so glad that you're here today. Why don't I get you to start by introducing yourself, and you can tell me a little bit about your current role and something you're super passionate about.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me here, Lisa. My name is Melissa Heidmiller, and my role currently is working in employer branding, which is essentially helping a talent audience decide, do I want to work for a specific company? So the company that I work for. And I am super passionate about careers. It's been a thread throughout my entire career is that I get very motivated when I can help somebody to make a positive career decision. That is my passion.
That's amazing. It's a shared passion.
Yes.
So let's go back to sort of the beginning,
okay.
Right? How maybe you can talk a little bit about, and you can start at any point in time that you want, maybe as a young person, maybe your first paid job, going to do post-secondary, anything like that. Tell me a little bit about sort of where you were and what you were thinking about and maybe what you did.
Sure. So when I was at Laurier, I did communication studies. And in that program, and actually just my experience at Laurier itself, I really got into volunteerism, and I really wanted to go into volunteer management, event management, sponsorship, that aspect. And after graduation, I never landed there. So I bumped around in different jobs all the time. And I was like, this is okay, working as a receptionist or working in accounting, which when you have a little bit of number dyslexia is not a good fit. There was lots of days where the boss was like, this doesn't add up, Melissa. I was like, I know. I didn't ask for this job. Thank you for it, though. And I had a moment epiphany of thinking, oh, wow, how am I supposed to figure out what I can do? And I thought of career coaches and career counselors. And then as I started exploring that for my personal benefit, I started actually getting interested in that actual field. So that's after my career bumping in my 20s, that's what led me to come to Conestoga, take the career development practitioner program. Okay. And that's what led me to where I am now.
Yes. We got to go deeper a little bit.
Yes.
What was your first paid job?
My very first paid job was... this is a little bit weird. So my mom is a professional psychic, and she would do psychic fairs. So I would go with her, and I would be her front person. So yes. So I would essentially pitch my mom to people that were walking by.
That's amazing.
To get them to sign up for readings and all that. So it was very weird and fun.
That is amazing. How long did you do that for?
Probably about 5 years or so.
Okay.
And then, because my mom was a single mom for quite some time, so I have a brother and sister. She would take all three of us to the fairs, and the other psychics and stuff, they'd be like, yeah, come and work my booth, or yeah. So if we weren't doing something with my mom, we were doing something with somebody else.
That is amazing. Yeah. That is the first time I've ever heard of. That's amazing.
I love it. Imagine.
Yeah, I love it. But so many skills, right?
Yes, definitely.
Right? So many skills that probably you sort of still use today, and maybe even sort of started that communications path.
Yeah.
Right. So you did that for a while, and then what kind of job did you do? You said bumped around, and you know what you did though.
Then my high school job was Tim Hortons,
nice.
Which I have to say still is one of my favorite jobs.
Yep.
It was fun, but you really get the aspect of teamwork and learning how to really prioritize and rush and get things done. So even though people are like, oh, it's just Tim Hortons. I'm like, what do you mean it's just Tim Hortons? It's like, what do you mean it's just McDonald's? These are great jobs.
Yeah. No, I agree. I used to hire peer tutors, and I loved hiring the ones that worked at either Tim Hortons or McDonald's because the skill sets that they learned were so incredible, and it really help them do their job so much better. So I'm always like, you know what? All work is good work, no matter what. But these are pretty incredible skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you did McDonald's. What else did you do?
After that, I got into waitressing, which I was a terrible waitress.
Yeah, did
so
that too.
I dropped pizza on someone.
Oh,
so
dear.
I was like, this is not the path for me.
Okay.
And then after that, after university, then I worked for a telephone directory. Okay. And thanks to Google, these are not really career options anymore. But that was I started in reception, and then company changes and I got shifted into the accounting, which was not a good fit. Then I got moved into customer service there. And then it was in that customer service role that's when I was like, oh, I need to figure something out because I'm not satisfied and I need some other kind of career fulfillment.
Yeah. So then so let's go a little bit granular. How did you figure out that careers might be the career for you?
Careers might be the careers for me. I think it was probably from resumes. I'm going to say it was that first hint. I am a creative writer. I'm very good at taking someone's babble and making it into very eloquent, nicely said copy. So I would often help my friends with resumes during my 20s. And it was just that kind of notion of, well, I know I like doing that part.
Right.
Am I going to like doing the other part?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you took the program.
So I took the program. Okay. I did it part-time, fully online. And I think before I graduated, I started working for Northern Lights, which is now Agelic. And that was down at their Cambridge office, which I don't know if that's there anymore. But it was a wonderful small team. And I'm still in touch with some of the individuals from that team. And then from our Cambridge office, I moved to our Kitchener office, and then I moved to our Fergus office.
Okay. So after Agelic,
I made a drastic shift. So I burnt out. Okay. I burnt out from the Employment Ontario world. Not very good at compartmentalization. So took a step back, and I took a marketing role for a small tech startup called Mozaz, which they've changed their name now, and I can't remember what they're called. Sorry, guys. And I did that for about a year. But in that process, I stumbled upon another HR tech startup, which was called Qualify. And they were in the HR space. They were all about talent pooling. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is an opportunity to still interact with the talent audience, but being able to keep that emotional distance that I need. So after hounding the founder for several months, he finally called me up and said, I finally have a job for you. So
cool.
That was a really great experience. I was there for about 3 years.
We need to unpack a couple of things there first. Yeah. What do you mean by talent audience? That might be a phrase that people don't necessarily know.
Sure.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So a talent audience is essentially anyone that's interested in anyone that is working, okay. Right? So whether you think, you have your active job seekers, you have your passive job seekers, all of that, anyone that could be an employee somewhere, that's your talent audience.
Okay. And then you said you hounded him for 7 months. What does that mean? Let's unpack that. Because I bet you might say you hounded, but I bet you there's some real strategy there, right? So what does that mean?
Well, so we were both up in the Accelerator Center. Which was very small rooms, lots of shared spaces. So I just kind of, I would see him around. So I would just kind of show up in the spaces that he was in, and I would make sure that he knew who I was. I would make sure that he knew my skill sets and my experiences, that I was interested in his company. I would engage with him in conversations about his company and like, why is this interesting for you? And what experiences are you seeing? And how do you perceive that talent audience, and just kind of position myself as like, I'm very interested in your space and I have experience that would be very relevant to you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then did you eventually send him, how did you let him know that you were kind of interested or looking? Did you send him your resume, or did you say, hey, if you ever have a job, call me up?
You know what? I think I was just very blunt.
Okay.
I was just very blunt in saying, if you ever have the opportunity on your team, I would love to have a conversation about it.
Okay, cool. So then you went there?
Yep. So I went there, and it was a really, really great experience. It was more in I'll say like a CSM type role, customer support manager role. But I wouldn't call it, I wouldn't describe it the same way that we would think of a typical CSM for a tech company these days, just because it was a lot of content creation to support our sales team, a lot of content creation that we could then put to make facing to our talent pools, and then supporting our engagement manager who worked directly with the customers. So there wasn't really a lot of like where I'm working directly with our customers. It was more of I'm the person that's supporting those other people that are out there.
So you created content. Give me an example of what that might look like. Like what would be a piece of content?
Sure. So we would have a blog. So there'd be content on the blog, and then creating social media from that. In the actual talent pools themselves, we would create questions to send out to people in a talent pool, and then the people would come back and they would answer it. And then the company would then be able to dip into the talent pool. They'd find the questions, which, we would create the questions in partnership with the companies. Then they would be able to come in and read people's responses. So that would help speed up their vetting process to select candidates to interview.
So what would be a question that?
So let's just say
an interview question.
Yeah, a lot of behavioral based interview questions.
Tell me a time when you had to deal with somebody difficult.
And then depending on the company, we might have questions that were more technical or experience based, specific to what the company is built around. So if it was retail, then we'd be looking for sales skills. If it was another kind of company, then looking at something that'd be more relevant there.
So if an individual answered a question, and it was a good question, that would get the attention of a hiring manager. And then the hiring manager might say, let me reach out to this person. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it was, I had such a great concept. Such a great concept. I loved it.
Okay. And it's still going on today?
Sadly, no.
Sadly, no.
Okay. Good, strong efforts. But I don't think that the market was quite ready for it. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened then? What happens next?
So while I was at Qualify, I'm going to call her boss just for lack of better term, but my boss, Jen, her background was actually in employer branding, which is how I learned about employer branding. And I was like, wow, this is just the most interesting thing in the world. And employer branding is essentially marketing an employer to that talent audience, so that when someone is out there and they're job searching and they come to look for a company, all the Googling that we do, all the conversations that we do, all those informational interviews that we do, it's employer branding is getting everyone and everything equipped and ready to present the company, hopefully correctly and authentically, to give that view to anyone that's looking at the company for that potential. So they understand what's the culture like, what can I expect when I'm working there, how do these people behave, how do they treat each other,
right?
Everything that it is to say good fit, bad fit.
Right. This is kind of a new concept, is it not?
No. New to Canada, yes.
Okay.
So employer branding came out in the UK, I think in the early 80s. And it's been so strong, and it's such an industry over in Europe. And then it filtered over to the States. I'm going to say in the 2000s. I could be wrong there. Filtered over to the States, and Canada lagged behind. So it was about 2015, 16 when I learned about employer branding. Okay. Anybody that I talked to up here to be like, hey, what do you know about this? Nobody knew what it was.
Nobody knows what it was.
Nobody knew. I was like, shucks.
Okay. So how did you get into this?
So
there's that connection with a friend, right? This yes. Jen person. Okay.
So I left Qualify actually to set up my own practicing career coaching.
Okay.
Because I have the back and forth of like, I love people and I love career coaching and I love the personal impact. Yes. But then I also have that I can't separate and I get too overwhelmed. So I was missing the people. So I set up my own practice. Yep. And I was doing career coaching independently for a while. And then my childhood best friend came to me for career coaching because she was looking for a change. And as we were exploring her potential pathways, she came across being a social media manager. And I was like, well, this is the niftiest job ever. I'm like, you should do this. And one night I'm lying in bed. I'm like, oh, Julia's going to be a social media manager. And these are all the great things that she could do. I'm like, I'll be really great with that. Someone who's really good at branding, someone who really knows how to take someone's strengths and experiences and position them in a great way. And then you push that out on social media. So then I approached her with an idea that we could start up a business, work with small business owners. We focused on women, solo entrepreneurs. And we became a branding and a social media company.
Okay.
So we did that for a while. Okay. And then COVID happened.
Yes.
And my brain exploded, and our customers, rightly so, a lot of them had to cancel. We took a pause, and then we came back together. We gave it a go, and still I was just like, I'm too frazzled. I can't do this. It's too up and down for what I needed at that moment in my life. And I asked myself, like any good career coach does, what do I need for career fulfillment? So I started doing exploring, came back to the idea of employer branding. I was like, I was really, really interested by that. Hopefully it's been long enough that we've caught up in Canada. So I started doing a lot of informational interviews with people in this space.
Okay.
I got a lot of encouragement.
How did you find them? How did you find people who did employer branding?
So I started off with my friend.
Yes.
My friend Jen, started off with her. She pointed me to a couple people. And then I Googled. To see if I could find anyone locally. And I was able to. I found someone in town here, and it honestly was the conversation with her really that really, she was like, you would be great for this. Just do it and go for it. So then she pointed me to some Facebook groups specific for employer branding. And then in joining one of those, I found someone who posted about a contract job at Procore Technologies, which is where I work now. And she said that she was looking for a contract person, and I just sent her a message right away. I was like, how do you feel about Canadians? Right. And her response was, I love Canadians, so hey. I'm like, well, nice. Why wouldn't you?
Yes, of course.
And we set up the interview, and I got the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're there now.
And that's where I am now.
There you are now. Okay, let's go to, so the company is called Procore
Technologies.
Where are they located?
Our head office is in sunny California.
Nice.
But we have offices all around the world.
Okay.
So we do have one in Toronto.
Okay.
But I'm fully remote, so I go like once a quarter just to say
into
hi.
Toronto. Yeah. Okay. Have you been to sunny California yet?
Ooh, you know what? I got to go back in May, nice. And it is beautiful. The office is like on the bluffs. The ocean is right there. And I'm like,
what a dream.
They got a made in the shade down there.
What a dream. So, okay. So tell me, what do you do then in this role? What do you do? Who you have the company, who's the industry, what do you do? Okay.
So Procore is construction management software. So essentially, Conestoga has to build a new building, right? So they're hiring contractors, they're working with engineers, they're working with designers, they're working with everyone in the landscape to get it made. Procore is the platform that centralizes everything. They're going to come and they're going to do all that. So when it comes to hiring for Procore, we are looking for software engineers. We're looking for everyone within IT that's outside of software engineers. We're looking for marketing, legal, finance, everything you're going to find in a typical company, right? But being that we're in construction, then we're also looking for a lot of industry people as well that can come and give their expertise. So they might be, they might show up in our sales and marketing roles, but finding those people that use the product, love the product. And we have so many people and they're like, oh, I just love Procore so much and I just want to work for you. And what can I do? So all these different people that we're trying to hire, from construction and then 2 not from construction. It's trying to create messages for them, public messages on our career site, across our social channels, equipping our recruiters with those sound bites and with the information that they need to have in order to educate their candidate base. It can be working with recruitment marketing vendors and creating content for those platforms as well, managing our Glassdoor, all of those aspects. So anywhere that a candidate might come to try to find information about Procore, that's my job, is to get the right content up there that is going to create the authentic story of what it is to be an employee there.
Right. And how many people work for Procore?
I think we're around 3,700.
Okay. So it's not a huge company.
Yeah, we're not huge. It was founded just over 20 years ago.
Okay.
And then they went public just before I started.
Okay. Okay. So I'm just trying to think about, like, I could see perhaps Conestoga having somebody like you doing the same kind of role.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like the flip side of career, right? I've just put my head around it.
Yeah. Like so it's interesting being in this role coming from the career development background, because when, I might have directives coming from various organizational leaders saying, well, we need to hire these people. Why aren't you saying this? And I can say to them, well, thanks to my background knowledge and my expertise, I can tell you that's not the right way to present this, because this does not connect with a candidate motivator at all. Right. And they're like, oh, tell me more. Okay. I would love to.
Perfect. Okay. That's such a cool opportunity and such a cool position. So I have two questions. What makes you good at this? What do you think is the thing that makes you good at this?
I think the biggest part that makes me good, honestly, is that I care, right? I care about the candidate. And I mean, I've said this to our, I'm trying to think of what his title is. Second man in charge, said it to the second man in charge of, I love Procore, but I love candidates more. I'm like, I don't know if I should say that to you, Steve. But I'm very invested in making sure that people make the right career decisions, right? So I never want to put out a piece of content, or I never want to direct a recruiter with anything that is going to have that candidate say, you lied to me. Right. Because that's not nice.
No. And how does it differentiate between sort of what you do and perhaps the recruitment team in a company?
Yeah. So the recruiters, I will say, they move very fast, and they have to. They have to be very nimble. And within our company, our recruiters they work with specific teams, and they consistently work with those teams over a course of time. But then there's other companies where, the recruiters might, do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. So the way that ours is structured, I get to partner with them where they're going to say, okay, so we are looking to hire sales development reps. We have a strong focus on increasing our gender diversity. What can we do? So then we're going to bring in our diversity team, and we're going to strategize all together to come up with some ideas. And then, like our recruiters and our sourcing team, they're going to go out. They're going to look at the incoming applicants. So that's the recruiters, and then our sourcers, they do that outbound search. So it's like they're fishing for people, and bringing them all in, and being able to leverage the content and the assets that I'm developing, whether it's through our platforms or through those recruitment marketing vendor platforms. They can, tease those out to people that are in that pipeline, whether it's like, oh, you know what, we've just called you for your first interview. Here's a great piece of content about blah, blah, blah that might help you feel more confident coming in, or something like that.
Okay, so actually, let's go into it. That was my next question. What is the blah blah blah? Like, I need a specific example. What would that piece of content look like? What would you just give me an example of maybe of a
sure,
so I can get my head around it, and maybe so that our viewers can, like, what is this?
What is that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a good example. Right now, I'm working on a piece for our career site, and my great SEO title is 7 interview questions every hiring manager at Procore asks. Right. So I'm working with the recruiters. I'm saying I want 7 behavioral style interview questions because I don't want any technical questions. I want this blog piece to be applicable to the software engineer, as well as to the executive assistant, as well as to whomever else. Right. So then, working with them, I get my 7 questions, and now I've identified 7 hiring managers, and I have to, keep my global scope. I have to keep my diversity scope, every scope on there. So being very strategic and picking 7 hiring managers, and I'm getting them to send me back a response of what is it that you're looking for when you ask a candidate this question, right? So then we put that all together, and then when I push that out for that person that's interested in interviewing at Procore, they can say, hey, here's some good questions that I should probably be practicing with. And now I have insight into what it is they're actually looking for.
Okay. And so where would you find that? You'd find that on a blog. You would maybe find that on an Instagram page?
Yep. So we'll share it out. So it lives on the blog, but then we share it out on our Instagram. We share it out on our LinkedIn. I'll find different ways of packaging it, depending on I don't know if this one would ever make it into a drip campaign with our sourcing team as they're reaching out, but it might end up going somewhere like, let's just say that interview gets scheduled, and if the person says to the recruiter, do you have any advice on what I can prepare with? Okay. Now the recruiter can say, here, you know what, check out this blog.
I see. Yeah. That is so awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think you've sort of given me a little bit of a day in the life, but maybe you could go into a little bit more detail in a day in the life, because then I want to go into this industry, because this is like totally fascinating. What does a day in the life look like?
My days are different every day, which is part of why I love it. So I will give you, I'll give you yesterday.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect.
This is what I did yesterday. As my boss is like, I'm listening. Okay, so I start my day. My team members mostly work Pacific time. Yep. So my mornings are nice and quiet. And so I spend that time trying to do my focus work. So if I am planning my new blog, right? So getting myself organized on that. We have a Q&A platform on our website, which we launched back in the end of May, which is really cool. So going in, monitoring for new questions that have been submitted to our team, seeing if there's any that I can answer on my own, or reassigning them to our various, we call them Life at Procore insiders, reassigning them to those people. If our insiders have responded, then I have to moderate their responses. Okay. So spending time getting that all taken care of, then looking at my social media calendar for the month, and making sure that I have my chunk of content for the next week, make sure that it's getting written, that it's getting scheduled into our social media scheduler. And then one-on-one meeting with my boss, doing a review with our recruitment marketing vendor that we're working with right now. We partner with In Her Site. So looking at what content is coming due in the next month, and identifying who are the employees that we want to feature in those pieces, and then just coming up that quick little plan for myself of have to reach out to them by such and such date. How do I want to be approaching them, etc. And then I might, I'm trying to think of what else did I do yesterday? And then I just might, right, yes, definitely have lunch in there and walk around the block because I work from home.
Nice.
And and then usually throughout the course of the week, I'll get a recruiter that just reaches out and asks a question. So
right.
So usually that's typically in there as well. So sometimes it's they're just looking to say, do we have any resource material around this? Yeah. Other times, it might be one of our recruiting leaders who's saying, can you get me some data for this? So then I can go and dig into our platform, our career site platform reports, or I can dig into social media analytics and give them some information about we're getting higher volume traffic from this country coming in, or we're getting what is our conversion rate of people starting applications to completing applications, or looking at all that kind of stuff.
It sounds to me like this position or this concept is kind of a culture view, like it's a culture perspective inside of an organization, because everybody is sort of has a part in making sure that good people come work for their company, right?
Yeah. So it's I'm going to backtrack because you asked the question about what's the difference between me and the recruiter, and I realized I didn't give you the clear answer. But if you think of like a marketing funnel. So, the funnel comes down, the top is that top of funnel, that's the brand awareness, that's me. And then as that funnel goes down, then you have your candidate collection. So that's the talent pooling. And then it goes further down where the recruiters are then working with the identified talent to move them through that hiring process. Yeah. So I'm essentially working at the top of the funnel. They're the bottom of the funnel.
Understood. Yeah. No, that's a good way to explain it. So where do you think this industry is going to go? Like, this is a new, I've never heard of this before, which is really cool. I love not knowing about stuff because it's so fascinating. I had no idea that this was even a possibility. So where do you think things are going to go? Do you think more companies might be sort of interested in doing this type of thing? What do you think?
My answer is I hope so.
Okay.
But I'll say my realistic answer is that it's just like many roles, depends on what the economy is. So when COVID was coming to an end, and you had all these companies scrambling for talent, there were so many employer branding roles, brand new roles on companies that have never had them before. And they're like, oh, this is the thing that we need. They think that's the problem, that this is going to solve my problem and get me all of these candidates. But then, the market simmers down and now they're like, oh, we're laying off your team. Sorry about that. Hasn't happened to me yet. But it's going to go in waves. But I think from a Canadian aspect, I've definitely been seeing a slow rise in organizations having it. But it's interesting because I find that these roles show up. They show up within other teams that don't necessarily call it employer branding. Right, where they're pulling it together. So, when someone is interested in like, oh, this sounds like a really interesting space, I would like to look at it a little bit more. Sometimes it is just sitting within a marketing organization, and it's simply just a marketing specialist role that happens to support recruiting, or it's coming up in an employee comms, internal comms kinds of roles there. So,
okay, that's fascinating. It is quite fascinating. What do you think about sort of the role that AI might have?
It's a big
one.
Yeah. Hot topic. Yeah. So I'll kind of jump around on that a little bit. So the trend in employer branding, some people are like, is employer branding? Is it talent brand? Which one do you want to call it? And talent brand tends to be more focused on the employee as the individual, versus employer branding tends to be like, this is our organization. So it's kind of like, depending on your perspective and how the company wants to put themselves out there. The trend right now is tending to focus on more of a organic, let's really reveal what's behind and tell the truth in the nicest way possible of what our company is like, as opposed to like, come here, we're perfect, right? So that's been a really nice trend to do that. So then when we think of how does AI impact that very transparent kind of approach, then it's more or less looking at how AI is just supporting creators to be more agile and nimble in our work. It's not like we're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go use Dolly, or I'm gonna go make, leverage Chat GPT to create my blog for me. It's not any of that, but it's more like, how can I use AI to take this video and pull out the most important pieces for me? Or how can I use Chat GPT to create a talent persona, right? By, doing all fun kinds of exploring on what it can pull. So I think that that's more where we would see AI coming up, is just how am I being more nimble?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so let's take, I want you to actually put your career counselor hat on and take a broad view. And you've sort of seen now this method of recruiting talent, but even sort of drawing in candidates as well. And you've done the other side of coaching people. Mm-hmm. How do you recommend people go find jobs? Like, what do you tell them in the light of all of these things that you've learned, right? You've got this really unique perspective.
I think with our job search, we have to be very intentional in what we want, right? Yeah. So, making sure you have the clear goal, mm-hmm. and then proceed, right? Instead of, the whole spray and pray thing, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Because I could definitely tell you, recruiters do not like those spray and pray resumes.
No, they do not.
They're like, why am I going to hire you? Yeah. So being very intentional in what you're looking for, making sure that that you're understanding the fulfillment that you're looking for in your career, and that fulfillment, how it's connecting with your whole life, right? So looking at the value aspect. So then when you have that understanding of your needs and your values, and you're looking out at the companies, you want to look for that connection. Make sure, is this company going to be able to serve me with what I need? And once you have those companies identified, you just go hard at them. Don't be annoying, but go hard at them.
I would say, okay, let's define that a little bit, because what does that mean?
So, let's just take Procore, for example. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, our customers love the company, which is amazing. And we get so many people that are like, I've been a Procore user for 10 years and I have all this industry experience and I really want to work for you, and tell me what job I can have here. Yeah. And every time I get one of those questions, I put on my career counselor hat and I say, well, I'm not going to tell you what you can figure it out. You're going to figure it out. And this is how you're going to figure it out. And then, I go through the whole, think about how do you want to serve the customer and what interests you and all that, and get them thinking more strategically about the role that they want. And then, and I kind of encourage them from there too, is like, now, when you get the idea of how you want to be helping, who you want to be working with, yes, you love Procore. If that opportunity isn't here for you, think about what are other organizations that are similar and go look at them as well, right? And I'm encouraging them to reach out to people that are on the teams that they're looking for. So, use LinkedIn, search people that way. I'll go back to our Procore customers. It's not just, I have experience with your product, so I'm a great fit. It's, what's more important too is, well, let's understand your industry knowledge. Let me go and research the company, as in what is the company about? What are our values? What's the mission? How do you you might have experience within this component of the platform, but what else do you know about all the other things that we do? Because we do a whole bunch of things, right? So really giving yourself that deeper understanding of a company, so that you can then have educated conversations when you have those informational interviews, right? So that you're not coming in and kind of looking like the deer in the headlights with oh, I didn't know that. I mean, yes, your purpose with an informational interview is to go in and learn, but do that background research so that you can have more educated and deeper conversations with them, right? So then you're impressing that person that you're having the conversation with. And they're then more inspired to say, oh, why don't you chat with so-and-so? Or, make the offer of, well, send me your resume, or keeping you in mind for when that role comes up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so I get to teach students in the career development practitioner program, and it's so much. There's so much fun. What advice would you offer to students in the career development practitioner program? They might soon be job seekers. What advice would you offer them?
Don't limit yourself in what you think you can do. As I have learned over the years, I mean, I graduated 10 plus years ago. And I never would have imagined this pathway for myself. So you're always learning and you're always growing. Look at your first few jobs as they can be stepping stones to take you anywhere else, right? That there's so many skills that you're learning in this career that's just going to be incredible in so many different spots.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any final words of wisdom?
Any more words of wisdom is just always pay attention to what you need in your life and how that fits with your career, and honor that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, what a great conversation. Thank you for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Careers. If you liked this episode and want to hear more, follow us on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. See you in the next one.